I was told by professionals that trading is essentially focusing on the system um, instead of focusing on the money. Focusing on the money, it seems to mean that I need to take money out and I place extensive value in money. However, money is just uh, single variable in a massively large uh, and expansive thing called day trading. Uh, so, however, it can be very similar to being habituated into a particular thing that creates a hormonal imbalance within the body. And what it does is essentially quite like what addictive things are, is placing such a vast amount of resources within that single concept to overwhelm any other thoughts. And when that happens, logical thinking has to take a room within a corner of the room, uh, corner of the building. And when that happens, the chimp arises, and the chimp drums its beat, and then makes trading quite an interesting afterthought. Because after the thought, whatever I thought just does not work out very well. And in hindsight, the choices that I made clearly demonstrate the inborn nature of the chimp within. So, in order to focus on a logical side of developing into a day trader, a successful day trader, is to focus on the intricacies of the different instruments that are available in order to look at the market and decipher what the market is telling me. It seems to me that it's like it's the intent of this video was to demonstrate that there is a moving average. Now, that's moving average is a single instrument within the realm of understanding what the market is doing. And the things that people do to look at the charts and look at charts throughout the time span in order is to come up with the idea and conclusions about what things would do within certain conditions, such as, let's say there has been a string of 20 green days on a sequential basis, and then one day a red candle shows up, a huge red candle shows up. Now, what does that information tell me? That has a possibility that highly likely the continuation and the stringing together of gains has gained a momentum in the direction of the reversal, whereupon the individuals who are holding on to that stock are trickling out of the stock by selling, which causes the candle to form, the red candle to form. That means that it is like, I suppose it is like an ant eating an elephant. The elephant does not know because the single nibble, the elephant doesn't feel it. However, as the ants consume the whole elephant, and as the elephant realizes that one of its right leg is gone, then it realizes that the ants are surely enough eating the elephant. Such is true with the signatures of how the day trading world works and how the market is telling me what's going on. Now, what I was hoping to do is focus on each of these instruments to determine how they can be employed to help me better understanding the uh, uh, particular avenue of understanding the dip and rip plays. And one of the added instrument that I've used, indiscriminately using dip and rip on any day, especially indiscriminate of whether it's a green trend or a red trend, can be disastrous with the right combination of heavy adding things that could be detrimental to my account, which I've seen in the recent past. So essentially, and I keep revisiting this over and over again because as a novice day trader, I don't know how high or where the summit is, and I keep trudging along. and keep working on it and thinking that right around the corner I see it. I am seeing the edge. However, if I go there and I look up, there's even a higher level, a higher place for me to climb. So I'm looking at this in a totally different perspective now that I've removed myself. And I don't know how long I'm going to remove myself from this concept called focusing on the system and not the money. Now, focusing on the system requires me to place a less emphasis on the value of money and placing that in as a single instance of a vast array of things that I need to use in order to make myself into a fully competent day trader. As such, now, the first thing that pops into my mind is what is related to the green days and red days. And green days and red days usually are generally trackable on hindsight as well. Because if I was able to perfectly 100% predict or chart out what the next step will be on the next day or the next day or the next day, then it would be like taking a time machine, going back and knowing, taking the newspaper of that particular day and going back and looking into the stock market to see what will happen. Of course, that's unless unless God allows such things to occur, that cannot happen. So, the better thing to do is reach the highest level of probability by adding as much as possible of the significant factors that impact the stock price. Now, it seems to me passing through the black hole is is essentially understanding the choking effect of the value that I place within the money. Once I free myself from the choking effect of the money, then I am essentially have escaped the velocity. I have created the enough velocity for me to exit through the other side of the black hole, and are escaping and reach the escaping velocity such that I can remove myself from the other side of day trading. So when I make this conclusion and when I move towards that instrument, that there is an instrument, there's probably two or three or four instruments that tells me outright what's going on within the market so that I can tie that in to impact the way that I trade. And that means that when I make a trade, the probability of me making the right trade is higher. That means that I am forced to take uh, less, uh, less, less frequent trades on those less impactful and lower probability trades. So these are the factors I believe that's what S&B Capital is at the core of DNA. I believe that is essentially cracking the reverse engineering the way that they're teaching uh, the way that they're teaching is essentially what they're doing is creating a higher probability of using the instruments that are the microscopes to the market and implementing that and creating a thesis based on those instruments, and that improves the probability of making the right trades. And for some reason, if the trade does not go in the direction of the thesis, then that thesis can be turned around and exited. Or perhaps there is a before thought that tells me that I can essentially hold on to a small drawdown, even though the thesis is particular in a fractional manner is incorrect. However, in sum total, at the end of the trade within the right time frame, the results will be good. And therefore, the focus essentially right now that I've essentially acquired experience within the numerous years, more recently on a full-time basis to acquire detailed experience within my day trading world. And as I expand upon my day trading world, it has occurred to me now. People have said this before. People talk about moving averages, how that's impacted, and how trading on both sides is a factor in what I factor in impacting my account. Therefore, now I need to focus on the instruments or the indicators. These are the indicators that tells me, people say like the professional day traders say that, well, don't rely on too much of the indicators. However, I have a feeling there's going to be maybe 3 or 4 factors, or SMB Capital uses maybe 10 factors, like previous history, the data, and the news, and how the stock behaves, and when, and what or underlying or overlying, or what the short percentages are, and what the volume is per day, and what kind of shares are outstanding, what kind of market the stock is in, whether the market is within a certain highly profitable or highly expanding world at a certain point, such as crypto stocks has been recently. And therefore, adding those indicators provides a higher probability that the trades that I make, once I get in, I'm able to withstand certain candlestick formations that could be moving in a counter direction on a temporary basis, and waiting for the possibility for me to even add to my position, such that at the end of the day, the thesis that I've created based on the numerous indicators that tells me that I need to go in a certain direction, and those certain critical indicators, which are critical in creating a profile of the stock to generate a highest probability A plus plus setup, can be achieved. And so essentially I keep telling myself, this is the tipping point, this is the tipping point, this is the tipping point. It seems to me at every point it's not a single, it's like a sphere. It's a sphere. It's like it is a sphere. It's not a V-shaped formation. Smart people have V-shaped formation, but some people like myself has a tendency to move in a direction that is spherical, semi-sphere, which means that one, I'm at a certain point where I'm declining in my financial capital. Then, as I start to accumulate knowledge, the steepness of that decline is reduced until I create a notable trough. Within that trough, then I know that the trough has occurred because my thesis keeps increasing. That elevates my trading capability, increasing my probability of making the right trades. And as I expand, and as I increase more and more each and every day, the probability of my trades become more prominent and more prosperous. And therefore, indicators, and as a cliche at this point within the trading community, because they're attempting to reduce the number of indicators to make trading simpler. The reason is certain indicators for certain stocks in a certain condition are more prominent, and impacts the stock price more than other stocks, other indicators, and therefore reducing and simplifying the selection of the indicators to determine which ones impact the stock most is the best way to go. So if I were to create an inflection point, turning around the corner and making these assessments, it is 2 stages. One of them is actually pounding the value of money into dust. The second part is freeing my mind. Once free from the emotional cycles of that capital and the value of money, that I can focus my attention and bring my mental capital into the realm of creating a higher probability trades by looking at certain factors within that trade. And therefore, uh, I need to now mushroom. It's like a I'm seeing myself as an individual now, like a small spore that landed on a log, and that log is creating a mushroom and mushroom effect. And that so far I have been a stem. Now it is creating an umbrella effect of expanding my horizon within the trading world to create a bigger picture of a particular trade on each of the trades, and understanding how time frames work, and what happens during the morning session, what happens in the noon session, what happens in the later session, what happens during the summer hours, what happens during the summer days, what happens during the winter time. Why do they call it the, what is that, Santa Claus days or something? So these are the things that I need to incorporate into my trading so that I can, one, increase the probability of making the right trade, and also essentially that's it. If I were to make it as simple as possible, the probability, increasing the probability of making the right day trades is actually understanding the what I'm seeing. The market is there. The market is there. The data is out there. The data is out there. All one has to do is just pull up the chart and look at the chart and see what's going on. The data is out there. The previous days, previous years, previous all the data is there. The behavior is all recorded. It is my job to look at the data and formulate an understanding of how the stock moves within a certain periods based on certain criteria, certain variables, and then extrapolate that, summarize it, place it in my mind, and then I take that information and then use it within the day when the live data comes in to recognize at a certain point, oh, I recognize that it has a high probability of performing certain actions within that period, within that span, within that month, within that period, such that within the market conditions, with the interest rates that are, with the oil at a certain level, I can have a higher probability of making a higher probability trade so that I can scale in, manage my funds, and then make the right trades. That is essentially what day trading is.